The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion.
Good evening. Depending on where and what time you're watching this show. Or so but I want friends here that will hopefully be joining more often as well as what we're doing from the streets from the city. Always begin all quick and we go into it. The whole deal. So you want part of teams have taught us to and you look for live Morris Media live.com www.morrismedialive.com. Spell it out. Now, this young lady we're looking at right now, we're getting ready to present to you, is a major player in the medical field. And we're going to find out that only way that she can do it, how she got here, because you're going to be transfixed as I was, the steps she got to get here. So, without further ado, help me welcome to Dr. Jason said, Dr. Cutter.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I'm letting you set this up because when we first talked and first met, and you told me a little bit about your background or whatever, I was kind of like my jaw hit the floor, which is just, it doesn't happen like that. But you just took an uncanny way of getting to this position where you're at now. So we're going to go back a few steps.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about the early times in the life of
Little House on the Prairie? Is that where we're going?
Yeah. You dress, you got the head wrap and everything.
That's right. I got my bonnet on and everything.
Well, your basket over here.
Exactly. Where's little Carrie? Running in the field. Okay.
So we're just going to take it back and just, bring it forward.
Okay.
There you go. Tell us a little bit about wherever you want to start.
He tried to call me out on my hometown, right? Talking about Ohio. Ohio's a great state. I happen to be from Cincinnati, which is a fantastic city, and I want you all to know my mother would be delighted that I am advertising Cincinnati because she is born, bred, and be there until she hits the grave. But clearly I'm here in L.A., so how did I get here? I started off in Ohio, and I went to get an engineering degree, and then from engineering I went into corporate America, did some sales and marketing, and then from there I went into medicine, and I have really enjoyed my career and working with patients, and I love my work. Mm-hmm. And I love my work so much, I didn't get a chance to change. And so here I am, and this is how I look in the OR, is with my hat on and my scrubs. But I think you guys can appreciate, everybody has a uniform. This is it.
Women in uniform.
That's right. I'm in uniform.
Now, you brushed over it a little bit now. Let me go back for a second to what you said earlier. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, follow me here for a second. Left brain, right brain analogies, so to speak. Now, earlier she told us she was in engineering. I have engineers around me 24 hours a day, and they have a whole circuitry wired different than the average person. They think different. They think about, when they look at something, they think about how they can deconstruct it and reconstruct it in various ways. While we just want to plug something into the wall that we expect it to turn on or we're going to have a fit, they're going to find a new way to have the circuitries going to where it's going to be something that satisfies their quest for, excellence on how do we turn the planet around. The rest of us don't think like that. So she went from engineering. Okay, now that is a field in itself. It takes a lot of college education, a lot of brain smarts, a lot of math, ladies and gentlemen, to be an engineer.
We love math. We love it.
And then she leaves the engineering field after she graduated and has that degree in engineering working. Then she goes back to school to pursue medicine. That in itself, ladies and gentlemen, is another grueling task because that's some more years of education.
But it was fun.
So you got too much time on your hands is what that means.
It was fun. Somebody at the time when I was contemplating going back to medical school, because I had a corporate career, and people were saying, what are you doing? You're not going to be making any money. You're going to be broke. And somebody said, look, like their grandmother always said, you're going to grow old anyway. You might as well learn something while you're doing it. Shout out to Lawrence White on that one.
Okay.
So I agree with that wholeheartedly. And, I had no real fear. I didn't know, I would have, student loans for forever. But, that's a whole nother, discussion here.
Right. From two different places. Coming at you at one time.
Oh, my goodness.
So you got the medical degree, and then you had to specialize on top of that, because there are different levels. What people don't know about it, there are different levels of the medical field, correct? Can you break a little?
Well, there's different ways to prepare yourself for your field. Most fields, there's a basic, some type of basic training, right? Everybody does an internship year in something. And then, through that internship year, you get into your residency, and then you progress on from there. When you're finished with residency, you can practice, whatever your field is. But if you want to specialize, you do a fellowship on top of that. So that's how it works.
Okay. Now, when you say fellowship, people don't understand. They think fellowship is on Sunday when you're at the church.
If only it were that pleasant.
Wow.
It was funny. I was talking to a colleague in the hospital today. He told me he did 4 fellowships. That's a long time. And each one is at least 2 years. Some of them at least 1 year. Some of them are 2 years. Some fellowships are 5 years. I know a woman, African-American woman, she's dynamite. She did general surgery, and then she did surgical oncology, which is a fellowship, and then she did pediatric surgery. So she is one of 5 pediatric surgical oncologists in the country. Unbelievable, right. Super smart. Beautiful, beautiful woman. She looks like a model. I'm jealous, of course. And she's just a good person and an excellent clinician, very well celebrated, traveling the world and things like that. So really proud of her. So you can prepare yourself for your field by doing these fellowships. And you were asking about mine. I did 2. One was a research fellowship, and then the other one was a clinical fellowship to get me ready for cancer surgery.
So I could see a little of a crossover, because you said research, and then in engineering they got R&D, which is research and development too. So that was not a stretch as far as doing research.
It was all science. My engineering degree was in computer engineering, software system development and design. So some people say, you kind of did it backwards, right? You were supposed to do the medicine first and then switch over into the software and get into the .com boom or whatever is happening now. So I missed that, I missed all that. And here I am, maybe the wrong field right now.
Right.
But, that software engineering focus really made me very analytical. And actually, when I was finished with engineering, I actually contemplating medical school, thinking I could do biomedical engineering, something like that. There's a lot of math involved in that particular major. And I actually did math that I don't even remember. That's just how it was. It was names of things like automata theory. If any of you knows what automata theory is, call in 323-293-3375. I don't even remember it, but I got a B in that class. Wow. I did. I read that book and I listened in class, but I still to this day, I don't even know what it was. But so that's the kind of stuff you had to do.
Wow.
So it wasn't so heavy into the life sciences. And it's funny, I was talking to another colleague today just about crossing over from this heavy quant, mathematic, physics, that kind of field into this life science field, now I got to take biochemistry. And I remember my first day of immunology in medical school, actually my first 2 weeks. You guys, I couldn't even take notes. Okay. That's how hard it was. I couldn't even take notes because I didn't even know what the instructor was saying.
Wow.
So some of you may have gone to school and you were lost and you thought, I can't do this. But listen, if you tough it out, you'd be surprised what you can do. I had to go to the bookstore multiple times. I finally found a book I could understand. I read it. I started to get immunology. And now, I love it. I love immunology. So we all go through these periods of, challenge or areas where you feel a little vulnerable or you feel that your ego is being, attacked by something, right? You feel like you want to know everything and you realize that you don't. And not only do you not know something, you can't even take notes in it. And it's a little humbling, but if you can make it through that humbling period, you can accomplish anything. Everything is like that. Everything that's worthwhile, in my opinion, can be that way. And so the key is don't stop there. Keep it moving.
I love it. Now that word, the definition that you asked them to call in on? What was that long name again?
Automata theory.
Okay.
AUTOMATA theory. Automata theory.
Now, we told you to call
Any of
in 323-293-3375. And you know what? I'm feeling good. See this right here? I'm putting this right on the table. The first person that can call in and tell me what the automata theory
We're going
is.
to send you this $20.
Yeah, you got this $20 bill coming.
I'm going to match it.
Yeah, you got to match it. Call us 323-293-3375, and it's automata theory.
Automata theory. But you have to be correct, okay? You can't call up and, make up a...
Right.
It's got to be correct. We're going to check. We're going to fact check you, okay?
Yes, we are. So we went from that aspect, and we talked about a lot of big words in the medical aspect. When I'm sitting there going, okay, yeah, sure,
I get it.
Right. But now there are different levels in the practices, even in the fellowships, okay? So in the fellowship, we got you with the research, and then we got you with the analytical part of it now.
Clinical, yeah.
The clinical part of it. Okay, but you turned around and you became a surgeon, okay, which is a totally different calling than just going in and seeing your doctor.
Well, that was what that training was about. Those 4 extra years on top of general surgery were the preparation to do this. So, yeah.
So how long did you go through this little process of medical?
Yeah, one day when the chief of my clinical fellowship was yelling at me, he reminded me, "You're a PGY 9." So that means that, program year 9, 9 years of training on top of medical school, 4 years. And I will say, I had such a good time in medical school and residency because I was very active in extracurriculars, doing things like being part of national organizations. I was part of an international committee. I used to have to go to Canada every year for that meeting. Wow. I used to go to different parts of the country for other things. There was a student level organization. I was an assistant. I was the associate regional director. I just did all kinds of things. And actually, I was the vice president of an international organization at my medical school, which allowed us as a group to each of us go a summer and travel and spend some time. So I spent 5 weeks in South Africa. That was amazing. And it was not too long after Nelson Mandela was released. And so there was a huge birthday party for him. And, being a student, I really didn't have it was like $1,500,
right,
to attend. And if I had been working, I think I would have done it. But I'm like, I can't justify $1,500 when, rent's going to be due in New York, which is where I was training. Like, I really need this money. But I was there, I was there during that time, and it was very exciting. There were a bunch of expats from the U.S. over there who were managing all these investment funds. And so I used to hang out with them. And then my host, he happened to be a Caucasian American. So he was friends with a lot of Afrikaners. So I hung out with them. And then where I was volunteering, it was in a poor township. Alexandra is what it was called. Poor township in Johannesburg. And so the students from Witwatersrand, which is the name of that medical school, would rotate through there. And so I used to hang out a little bit with them. So I got to see the South Africans, the expat Americans, and the Afrikaners. And I just had a great time. I did all kinds of things. I do have, like one horror story, but other than that, it was good. It was really good.
Right.
And this was in spite of the State Department at that time kind of almost banning travel. They said it was very unsafe and all that. But, I just I read through the material and I just made a decision that I'm going to try to be smart about this and I'll be safe. I lived in a gated community, and I got a phone, I got a car, and you're not supposed to drive at night. I only drove at night one time for the whole 5 weeks. So, it worked out. I feel really blessed that I had such a good experience because I think it could have been different if things had gone different. So,
right.
It was good.
So in other words, you got too much time on your hands.
Do I have enough time? Do I have enough time? I have too much energy on my hands.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, because that's a lot of schooling, a lot of this, and a lot of extracurricular activities, and it's like, people today can't even juggle 2 things. Going to work and coming home is a task for some people.
That's because they're on their phone all the time.
Oh, is that what it is?
People are on their phone all the time, and And the busier you are, the more you get done. Everybody knows if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Marla Gibbs taught me that.
Right?
Yes,
Because, they have a schedule and they block time out and they say, okay, I'm goal directed. I have to get this done. If you want something to not get done or to get done poorly, give it to somebody who's idle. It'll just,
idle just like everything else.
They'll look at it like this 20. They'll look at it and go, that's interesting, and keep on moving.
Right. No one has time to think anymore. Everything is just, So now you came here, you did all your internships, you did all your traveling around, and then you settled. Okay, this New York that you've been in. Why California? Why LA?
I really didn't plan in LA. And the interesting thing is, as I was coming to the end of my residency in New York, I kind of had a crisis of domicile. I'm like, what am I going to do after this? Am I going to stay in New York? The subway and the snow and the cold, because I had moved from Chicago to New York. So cold to cold. Okay. And I thought it was going to be a little better, but it was still cold. It was still snowy and all that. I'm like, I can't take it anymore, So I had a crisis of domicile. And I remember I actually, consulted with somebody to talk through, okay, what are my options? What am I going to do after residency? And, I decided, one day I had, a moment of clarity and I realized, because initially I thought I would do plastic surgery because I wanted to do reconstruction after cancer surgery. Because if you think about it from an engineering standpoint, putting things back together is kind of a natural, outflow of that engineering thing. But I realized it was treating the cancer that I really enjoyed. And that's a bit of an engineering thing too, because you have to come up with a unique, each thing requires a unique solution, right? Each patient's tumor requires that unique solution. There are standards of care and things like that, but there's different ways you can accomplish that.
Right.
So I really like the challenge of that, and I like really complex things. And so anyway, I thought about it, and I decided, okay, let me apply for a fellowship. And I remember I got this interview to come out here. I went different places across the country. And, I'm going to be honest with you, I wasn't feeling that much love, okay? Because there's really not a lot of diversity in my field. I'm just telling you, nobody was really thrilled to see me. They're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I don't know. I thought I was trying to have a career, but maybe not. So anyway, I came out here to interview in February. And I think they do that intentionally, right? Because it's gray, it's cold, and it's snowing in New York, and slush everywhere. Anybody who's lived in New York, what do you see on the side of the street all the time? A million black garbage bags, like every single day, But New York is pleasant. I did like New York, so I'm not kind of talking against it. But, it's hard to compete when you fly out here. You get off the plane, it's like sunny and palm trees. It's 72 degrees. Right. Nobody has on coats, and I'm hot with my blazer on, and I'm thinking, why would I leave here? Like, why would I come here?
Right.
So I remember I was in an interview with like 4 other people, and I sized up the group, and I figured out who my competition is. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to compete with these people, because competing with other people is a recipe for disaster. It really is.
Gotcha.
I'm just going to be my best me and just ignore the fact that these people are here competing for this position. And somehow God smiled on me and said, you can have the sunshine. And so I did my fellowship out here. And I just remember every day I would walk to the hospital from my apartment, and it would be the sun's coming up and there's flowers along the way. And I'm like, this is so awesome.
Right.
I can't leave, So that's how I ended up in LA.
Wow. Got you. But you made a good point. The diversity now, and I'm sure going through this, even in the engineering field, women were not always applauded. And for an African American woman, I'm sure that it did kind of narrowed the line down a little more. So I'm sure you had controversy. I'm sure you had struggles in this whole vestige to get to where you're at now. And for somebody who's watching right now, a young lady that says, okay, I'm clicking on to what she's saying, the tenacity and whatever, she's made it, but I'm stuck in this one. Well, give us some a part of that they can hang their hat on and say, okay, I can do it if you can do it. Talk about a little bit about that struggle through that.
Okay, D-Nice, why are you trying to give me flashbacks? Okay, he's trying to give me flashbacks to to the difficult time.
Right.
So, I got a lot of good advice growing up from people in my family about how to deal with difficult situations and things like that. I had just an extremely gifted grandmother and grandfather. You know, my grandparents were just extraordinary people, salt of the earth, hardworking. You know, my grandfather started out as a Pullman porter on the railroad. My grandmother was a cosmetologist, you know, but they worked hard and they amassed real estate, you know,
Right.
so they were grassroots, can-do people.
Okay.
And so when you have an example like that, you know, it's really hard to kind of sink into I can't do this kind of thing, or I'm going
Right.
to let these people get in my way. And then, you know, I look at, you know, my parents. You know, my father was a pilot in the war, and he came back from the war and he wanted to be a commercial pilot. They were like, no.
Right.
You too shades, too dark. You know, you're
Right.
going to do something else. And, you know, he bailed out and he did dentistry. My mother was a hardworking, you know, homemaker. And then, you know, later went back to school, and she actually graduated, you know, right before I did, you know,
Right.
from undergrad. So when you have people who, you know, in your life and in your family that demonstrate that no matter what it is you want to do, it doesn't matter when you start it. It's just a matter of finishing.
Right.
So, you know, we are not quitters. You know, we are not, you know, people who give up. And, you know, you just have to finish what you start.
Gotcha.
You know, and that's really all that it is. Even if it's painful, even if they take a break. One of my classmates in medical school, her fiance got killed our second year.
Wow. Wow.
That's a big one.
Yes.
That's a big one. She took a year off, and then she came back, and she kind of struggled for a while. She finished. She did a fellowship, I think, in infectious disease or allergy and immunology. Fast forward, you know, 10 years or something like that. She's like one of the foremost researchers in HIV now.
Wow.
And that's all from having this devastating situation. So, you know, if you finish what you start, you
Right.
can do anything.
Right.
And that's really what it is. So, you know, I really release all of those challenges and difficulties and all of that. And I just don't carry that with me.
Gotcha.
That's important to do.
Yeah, it's that tenacity that everybody says you got to put one foot ahead of the other. But until you've walked in somebody's shoes, you can't understand their trials and tribulations. That's why I said let's bring it out so we can talk about that. Because if somebody's going to be listening to you and say, oh, well, you know, I'm going through the same kind of struggles. I'm in this kind of work environment to where they really don't like me here, and I've got all these struggles and all these friends that are turning their back
it doesn't
on me.
even
and
matter, right? You like yourself. God always loves you, right? And you're never alone because God's always with you. So what difference does it make, right? You know, and really, Joel Osteen says it very well. He's like, I just treat everybody like they're my friends, like they
Right.
all like me. You know, he's like, they don't, most of the people don't even like me. I mean,
Right.
he actually says that
Right.
on air all the time.
Wow.
I think that's genius.
Right.
You know, if you just say, hey, you know, this person's my friend, they all like me. It's completely different, you know?
Right.
So, you know, we can sit here and be addicted to the favorable opinion of other people.
Right.
Or we can listen to what, you know, God says about us, what we say about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, and really feel resolute in that.
Right.
You know, do we really need friends? I mean, need is a very strong word. It's great to have friends. You know, it's
Yes.
great to have family. But there's some people who are alone in the world and they're still very happy.
Right, exactly.
So it's not to get rid of your friends. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying you don't have to be addicted to other people's
Right.
opinions. You don't have to morph yourself to, you know, adhere to somebody else's standard. It's important to have your own internal standards, you know?
Right.
One of my dear friends, when she got married, she's a genius and her kids are just amazing. One of her children is my godson. But anyway, she said she decided when she got married that she was going to establish a family and a standard.
Okay.
So, you know, let's say her last name was Jones. She's like, you know, she would always tell her kids, you know, other people might do that, but we're the Jones family. We don't do that. And she really established that identity that, you know, we have a different standard than the
Right.
rest of the world. And if you can do that for yourself, you know, even if your family didn't do it for you, if you can do that for yourself, it's like maybe all my friends, everybody I know does this, but, you know, I am me. This is not what I do.
Right,
Right.
right.
And if you hold yourself to that standard, then, you will continue to have excellence and persevere and all of those things. It becomes a little bit easier,
Now, we're going to move ahead a little bit because now you've got to California. You hit LA because you could have gone anywhere up north, which would have had the same problems because they do have some snow up there. And they do have inclement weather up there. And so you left past the Bay Area and came down to sunny Southern California, LA. And when you got here, then you decided to set up your roots. And so within the roots being set up, then now became a portion of you that branched out into Curtology, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let's explain to the people the door that we just opened. What is Curtology?
I guess in my mind, Curtology is a concept. It's the study of cure, the focus on cure. And so, my goal is to whoever presents themselves to me as a patient, we're really not focused on disease, right? Okay. We're focused on wellness, health, restoration.
Right.
And so in doing that, we have a partnership. And I say this to almost all my patients. Look, we're in this together.
Right.
I have a role, but guess what? You have a role. And I make deals with them. Okay, I will operate on you, but you have to promise post-op to do these things, right? Or we're going to go down this path. But, your responsibility in this is these 5 things. And, I really work with them on taking responsibility for, first of all, understanding the diagnosis that they have. Notice I didn't say their disease, right? People have a diagnosis. They have a cancer diagnosis. They do not have to, be that diagnosis, but they have that diagnosis.
Right.
And so they need to understand what it means. And so I have them do things like develop a folder where they have their pathology reports and imaging reports and all those things. So step 1 is really understanding your disease and being able to discuss it, because step 2 is you need to make good decisions about your treatment.
Okay.
It's not just whatever the doctor says and I don't know what's going on. None of my patients talk like that. I don't like that. You need to know what's going on.
Right.
So, that's the second part, is really getting empowered and through discussions, education, resources. I give everybody, resources to look up and things like that to become empowered to really make their own decisions. And then, finally is a focus on wellness, taking their body back from their diagnosis, that disease. There's a lot that we can do to take care of what ails us.
Okay.
And it's a matter of, a little self-control, a little discipline, and really being mature about our taste buds, right? There's things that a lot of people like. Everybody likes the fat and sugar and salt and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But, a big pile of it's not going to do you any good. But what you can do is you can eat healthfully and just make it taste really good. Okay. So I set goals for them in terms of their diet and hydration. I actually have a kind of a whole program that has 7 facets to it. And so there's opportunities in each of those facets for people to pursue taking wellness back into their body.
Right.
Am I talking about being a vegan or, only eating sticks and twigs? No, I'm not,
Right.
No twigs or sticks here either. But I am talking about having daily kind of health goals, the way to eat and things like that, and making modifications when you go to restaurants, looking at a menu a certain way. All of those things. So it's pretty comprehensive, what we can deliver. And I really enjoy all of the facets of the work. I really do.
Right. So you can do the surgery if need be. But in other words, what I get from what you're saying, you'd rather stop people from having to go there.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not in the preventive care business, right? People only get to me after the deed is done.
Right.
But, what I tell them is, especially with cancer, most people think cancer is cured by the surgery and the radiation and the systemic therapy, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, but, whichever way you go. And there's a certain extent of that that's true. But what all of those treatments are designed to do is actually give your body a head start so that the immune system can clean up everything else that we can't see, right? The immune system is the watchdog for the body. And, sometimes we feed the dog sleeping medication, so it's asleep.
Right.
Or sometimes we, kill the dog and it has to be replaced, sometimes, all these things that we're doing to this little watchdog. And so that's what those health and wellness activities are designed to do, to wake up that dog and make that dog, in prime condition and ready to run and fight and take care of these cancer cells.
Wow, right.
So it's really the immune system that we're after in terms of supporting. And if you support your immune system, it will support you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that a lot of times people will come and they'll bring to you, I'm sure, tons of medication that's been prescribed to them. Now, I'm hearing a lot about medications nowadays. When I turn on the news, every time I hear something on the news, they're finding something about this medication that they give a disclaimer. It could explode your heart. It can melt your brain, and you're sitting there going, dude, I have a better chance going through the disease.
It's true.
So is it that rancid out here with the medication? Or
rancid.
What can we say? Somebody's getting something through somehow.
Well, medications are not all bad. And, here's the thing. What's the goal? If the goal is to try to resolve the situation, whatever it is, medications sometimes are the quicker path. The easy route is something people can do. They can do consistently, wake up, take their medications, they can do that.
Right.
What's unfortunate about that is people think, okay, I have heart disease, right? So I'm going to take my medication in the morning and then I'm going to have 3 eggs,
a slab of bacon,
biscuits, half a slab of bacon, and I'm good, right? It's okay.
Right.
And you can have eggs, bacon, and, some type of a carb, but that's the combination that's going to really give that medication a run for its money.
Right.
So, there's more to it than that. So, although I don't really work with patients on their medications and things like that, we talk about activities that can help to reverse their medical issues if they choose to do it. And with me, it's all about choice. I'm not going to force you. I'm not your parent. I'm not here to browbeat you.
Right.
This is the pathway. And I can set you on the pathway. I will walk with you on the pathway. But if you're not interested in the pathway, no problem.
Right.
Okay.
No, I had to dip that because one of the biggest things they're doing now is when the cold season, the flu season, everybody immediately goes down and gets their antibiotics. And they're saying that there's a super bug out there. The antibiotics is not even able, and it seems like the more they get antibiotics, the more they're getting something that can override that.
Because antibiotics don't treat the flu. It's a virus. All that stuff is a virus. It's not bacteria. Antibiotics are for bacteria.
Okay.
And viruses are treated with antivirals. Nobody ever goes out and gets antivirals. They go and they get the antibiotics, and the antibiotics kill the normal flora and then leave the body vulnerable to these superbugs. Right.
Okay.
And the superbugs just kind of chew on that antibiotic and they go, oh, this is interesting. Okay, I think I know. Let me just taste it again. Okay, I think I know how to fight it.
Right.
And that's how they become immune. When you're treating, issue A with the wrong medication, so that's where that comes from. Right.
And then you got the opioid situation that's really rancid out of control. I'm telling you, how many people that have died from opioids.
Yeah.
And I've been to situations to where I've had basically like certain things that I'm doing. It might be as light as a tooth cleaning or whatever else, or whether they got a deep clean or whatever. And afterwards, they'll give me like Narcan or something like that.
Norco.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Dude, you can give me an ibuprofen and I'm good.
Yeah.
But when you start going over here, you're supposed to be my friend. That's not too friendly if I'm going to die on this stuff. That's not user-friendly for me. But you see it daily. Cats are doing it.
Because people are demanding it. You would be surprised at what people ask for. And I think that there's some people who just, I'm just going to give 5 of these tablets or whatever, and let them take it. And, some people do need Norco. Some people are very pain intolerant, and other people, you can basically chop their head off and they're like, I'm fine.
Right.
I don't need anything. There's no pain here, so it's just a big variation.
Gotcha.
And the question is, how do you determine who needs pain medication?
Gotcha.
And this whole pain medication thing came because somebody sued a doctor because they didn't adequately assess their pain and didn't give them enough pain medication. You know, I don't know, it's like 20 years ago. I don't know the time frame. I have to be honest with you.
Right.
So the pendulum swung toward, okay, give everybody pain medication because you're going to get sued if you don't treat the pain adequately. Okay, you see? And so now then the pendulum has swung this way.
Right.
And it's like everybody's getting pain medication. People are ODing. So now you're going to get sued if you treat the pain. So it's kind of like, what are we supposed to do here? It's difficult in the U.S. to practice because you don't necessarily have the freedoms sometimes of making medical decisions. You make a medical decision and then you have to ask an insurance company if it's okay, right? Will they approve it and things like that? Even though it's indicated, they could just say, you know what? We're not going to cover it. So what does a patient do? So you have to work around it. Same thing with situations like this. If there are lawsuits out there in certain areas, then people get very wary. Well, I can't not treat this, so I have to treat it. We have a very litigious society here.
But unlike some of the other countries that give free medical to everybody, I mean, it's open scale to everybody, then it seems like, how can you really specialize when everybody's the same there? I mean, no matter what you do from a stub toe to a cancer, you got it covered.
Well, the thing is there's some judgment, right? Not everybody who has gallbladder issues needs a surgery. It's that kind of thing. So there's still some judgment needed.
Right.
And then there's still, a certain level of skills. There's some skills that are needed to take care of it. So, just because there's, protocols and, everyone gets treatment doesn't mean that everybody fits nicely into that box.
Right.
Exactly. Some people don't fit the box.
Exactly. And some people don't know how to build the box.
You
know what I'm saying? We'll find out daily, all them doctors sitting there practicing, some of them out there that don't even have licenses or whatever, and people going down to Mexico or this place or that place and getting treatments done because they can't. It's very hard to kind of follow a trend. If you were a betting man, I could not bet the cards that medical analysis has because it seems to change from week to week depending on where the pharmaceuticals are having their hand in there, where the doctors' unions have theirs in there, where the attorneys with the lawsuits have. So everybody's got a piece in this one here. So how do you kind of like meander through this thing and keep your sanity as a doctor, as a surgeon?
I have to tell you, it gets challenging sometimes because, you get into this space where you really want to help people and you come up with a plan that you think is really going to help them. And then you feel stifled by these elements in the system about what well, if you do this, then this is going to happen, or you can't get approval, or, whatever the situation is. And I realize how we got here. We got here because way back when people like me couldn't be a doctor, there were other people who were taking advantage of the system, right? And so they put all these little safeguards in place. But all those people retired and they're wealthy and they're having a good life.
Right.
And meanwhile, now those of us who couldn't be physicians before that can be physicians now are kind of, living in the realm of dealing with what they did wrong, right?
Gotcha.
We are paying for their sins,
right?
So it can be challenging sometimes, but, it can also be gratifying. Patients are very appreciative, and if you have a good rapport with people, which I really like to do, you can get close with people to a certain level, and they introduce you to their kids. Somebody introduced you to their youngest son today and was just so proud for me to meet them. And you just feel there's a lot that makes you feel good qualitatively. So, I really wouldn't trade it. I enjoy my work.
Wow.
I enjoy my work.
I can tell. So not only do you have your runs of the rounds, which must be a privilege to be able to be accepted into different hospitals to do what you do. So it's almost like you're a tactician. Okay, when they bring a special hit squad in, Dr. Cutter, Paging Dr. Cutter, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Report and perform.
I'm ready.
Right. So that must be challenging too, because different hospitals have different protocols and different aspects, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And, some may like you more than others, and others may be jealous more than others. And so I'm sure that has its own little, saying.
I just want to be like Joel Osteen. Everybody's my friend, right? Everybody's my friend.
Yeah,
you know
what I'm saying? or you carry around your little like they do in Benihana when they come in and they open their home. You know what I'm saying? Go to work. Right. But that leads me to now. You have a clinic that you have that's in the Los Angeles area that you basically go to the basics on helping people to get a wellness appreciation. Let's put it to you like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's talk about your clinic.
Okay, we can talk about that.
Yeah, let's do that.
What would you like to know?
Everything. But those listeners saying, now you got them on the front seat. Oh, she's got a clinic. We can, they don't have to stand in line at the hospital now. Okay, so let's talk about your clinic.
Well, I work out of two different clinics. I have two different clinic settings, and what I offer there primarily are, visits for surgical services, and some are for ongoing cancer, what we call surveillance. Surveillance is basically what it sounds like. You're just kind of watching to see if the cancer comes back. It's usually a 5-year cycle, and, periodic imaging and things like that. And then the other thing that I like to offer is this health and wellness component where, we talk about things like weight management. Notice I didn't say weight loss because, everybody is not going to lose weight because sometimes muscle is heavier than fat, right? But they're going to lose inches. So there's a weight management and, really health management issues and detoxifying and things like that. I'm just interested in that area, and I want to bring that to bear on people and help them increase their quality of life and increase their longevity so they can be around for their grandkids. That's what a lot of people want to do. They want to be here for their grandkids. And the way to do that is to take care of yourself.
Right. Now, where for those that are really interested in sitting right on the phone, where you located, and are you user friendly by transportation, or how does that work?
Yeah, I like there's the two locations, as I said, and one is downtown LA, and the other one is out in a suburb that's not far away, and easy to get to. Parking, all that stuff is there, and just very convenient, nice people in the offices and things like that. So it's a pretty good situation. Yeah.
So they can call you, come by and see you. How does that work? How do they? See, we're just talking about it now. We can advertise from here. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about everything. So for those, how can they catch up with you though?
If you're coming for surgical care, you usually have to be referred by your primary. Gotcha. But you can self-refer and pay cash. You can always do that.
Cash is king.
Cash is king. Cash. So you can do that. You can self-refer and pay cash. That works too. Or, if we don't, or we can work out something, through the insurance company, so that's something. And then, of course, the health and wellness is, typically is as much or as little as you want to do. So, it's a nice situation. I like it. I don't know if you can tell, but I like freedom and choice.
Right.
And exactly. I try to offer things in a way that feels free and choice. And so for those people who want somebody beating them over the head, I'm not that person. I'm not going to be, I will reinforce, my messages to you, but I really like to give people choice and it's up to you, what you want to do. But I do recommend this and you make your decision, talk to your family, and we can move forward.
Now, as far as holistic now, for those that don't understand that whole catalyst of holistic, what does holistic mean?
Well, I would say holistic really is looking at an individual as a total person, as opposed to a person with an organ that has a problem. You're not just saying, wow, okay, there's somebody with heart disease. You're saying, okay, here's somebody who is showing up as heart disease. But really, what's going on globally with this person? Because we know if you have peripheral vascular disease, in other words, you have problems with the arteries in your legs, if you've had a heart attack or if you've had a stroke, you're not just having problems in that one set of blood vessels, right? It's globally, and it shows up in different ways. So what is it that we can do to try to address this global health issue? So that's kind of a holistic focus. And recognizing that, the organ systems don't work in a vacuum. They work together in concert. It's a beautiful concert. It's a series of hormones and factors that are constantly circulating, giving off their messages, and allowing the body to do what it does best, which is to keep us alive and healthy and viable.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes it needs help. Because those of us
We often
that
do.
take a little extra privilege.
Okay.
Well, put that. Would they like to have their sugar with their coffee?
There's nothing wrong with a little sugar. The problem is, when you have 10 cups of coffee with, 3 teaspoons of sugar each, that's a lot of sugar and a lot of coffee.
Right.
Coffee is a diuretic, and so that means you're going to urinate out a lot of fluid.
Right.
So what do you do to address that? Water. Okay? It's kind of like alcohol. When you have a glass of alcohol, for every drink, you should have 2 glasses of water. Do you do that? Do you do that? But really, that's how you oppose the dehydration effect of the alcohol is by hydrating with the water or something, a clear beverage or, a fruit or vegetable that is very hydrated. So things like cucumbers, juicy things, watermelons, and, things that are very juicy when you bite into them. Those are the things that you want to consume.
Exactly.
Well,
although the ground is supposed to be our sanctity of hollowness of nutrients and everything, they've destroyed that too. Because I know they got the recent recall has been a long-going recall of the lettuce, the romaine lettuce, and it's natural from the ground, and now it's giving people E. coli, and it's like E. coli is another word for
bacteria.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, and
now
it's killing folk.
Yeah, that one you do need antibiotics for, okay?
It's killing people.
Yeah.
So, and people will say, okay, we're all about eating from the ground and the nature and whatever else. And okay, how's that working for you? You know what I'm saying? Because you're still dying at a rate that's...
Well, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? I mean, you can find a horror story associated with any situation,
That's
right?
true.
But if you think about it logically, I mean, even if you think about people who are African American, and even if you don't accept this heritage or not, there is a slave heritage. And during that time and not long after, there was a lot of living off the land, a lot of vegetables served at tables and things like that. There wasn't all the, all the things that, we do now. There was just a lot of vegetables eaten, and a lot of them were vegetarians because meat was expensive. They didn't have access to it. Or you had to hunt to get it or something like that. And I'm talking about way back when.
Right.
So that, that vegetarian existence it really is kind of natural, for us. Now we dress it up with a lot of, high fat, additions to it and everything.
Yeah.
So, that's the issue. But having, things from the ground or from trees and things like that is a good thing. Unfortunately, now we spray the trees in the ground with a lot of chemicals. We plant the trees and the grounds with seeds that have been genetically modified, all of that stuff.
Exactly.
I want you all to take an opportunity to travel out of this country to a place where they still really grow their food from the land without a lot of modification of the seeds. I have been to places, oh my gosh, where you're just like, this is what a vegetable tastes like. I mean, this is like a real vegetable. It's so, flavorful and the texture is correct. It's like a completely different experience.
Right.
And you begin to remember this is what it's supposed to taste like.
Right, exactly.
So I think we run up against that sometimes. This is a country of opportunity.
Right.
Capitalism. And so because of the opportunity in capitalism, sometimes, there's things out on the market that are a result of that and not necessarily a result of healthful lifestyle.
Right. And then unless people could recognize what healthful lifestyles is, over the last 5 years, I think it was, the obesity rate among kids now having, type 2 diabetes among kids now. That used to be something that older people get when you get to a certain age or whatever, but now you get the kids there too.
You do.
And God bless them. They don't know what they're going through. They just know that they're having to do treatments or whatever. But, how do we basically circumvent that now when we know that we can't go, okay, do we run to Whole Foods now? I mean, who can afford Whole Foods? You know what I'm saying? Or some of those Sprouts or whatever else where you have your, this is organic. And is it really organic? You
brought up so many topics that are just very near and dear to me in that whole segment there. And one thing that really gets me these days is obesity. You know, being a cancer professional, you know, someone who addresses people with a cancer diagnosis, obesity is very troubling. You know, the number one modifiable risk factor for cancer is what? Tobacco, right? Everybody knows no smoking and this and that. You can't smoke in here, smoke free this, smoke free that, right? And like, okay, we're safe, right? Well, now what's replacing tobacco is obesity. Obesity is becoming the number one modifiable risk factor for cancer. Obesity.
Right.
That's crazy. You know, it's like what you eat, you know? So people think, oh, it's just being fat or overweight that is the risk, but it isn't. It's the road you took to get there, right? You know, it's all those times when you decided to forego the vegetables with the nutrients that you needed and the water that you needed and detoxifying your liver that you needed to do and getting rest at night and detoxifying your relationships, which people don't seem to ever want to do, right? Everybody likes these bad relationships. I want to keep them, you know, and all of those things, you know, and there's, like I said, I have a whole group of facets that I focus on with people to develop this healthy lifestyle.
Right.
So the obesity thing is really big. And if you look in certain communities, 60% of women are obese.
Wow.
You know, women of color, you know, that's pretty serious.
Yes, it is.
60%. So that means that 60% of women is at a much higher risk of developing cancer than the rest of the population.
Right.
That's startling.
Yes, it is.
Another trend that we're seeing is younger people, just like you're saying, are developing cancers. I took care of a patient today, 36 years old with a very advanced anal rectal cancer. Very advanced, coming, you know, what we call exophytic. It was locally advanced. It's involving, you know, several organs down in the pelvis. 33-year-old with an 11 centimeter, which is a football size almost, colon cancer I've taken care of. 22-year-old with an 8 centimeter thyroid cancer. 22 with 2 little toddler twin boys.
Wow.
So this is what we're seeing now. And what did they all have in common? They were obese. These 3 individuals, you know, it just so happened. They were and young and obese. The other thing we're finding is that, you know, we used to say, okay, it's time to screen for cancer. Age 50, go get your colonoscopy.
Right.
What we're finding, though, is in communities of color, they're developing cancer at much younger ages. So now the recommendations are at least 45.
Okay.
And if you have other risk factors, you should talk to your primary care physician about referring you at 40, you know, because again, we're seeing these colorectal cancers at 36, 42, things like that. It's too young. It's unbelievable. So we are seeing this, and I think that the obesity has a lot to do with it. And then taking, you know, the obesity in another direction, you were talking about diseases like diabetes.
Right.
You know, if you can reverse the obesity, if you can recover from that, a lot of those medical problems go away. And so what some people do is they do the weight loss surgery. Okay. And that is a pathway, you know, especially if you have really bad comorbidities, you know, comorbidities being these medical issues, that is a pathway to resolve them. But, you know, you do have an alternative. You can change your lifestyle, you know, develop some self-control, you know, figure out what it is that's causing you to eat the way that you are, because there's a reason for it. It's just like people who use drugs, alcohol, what have you. There's a reason. You know, they're not just drug addicts because they're bad people. No, there's something that they're trying to either address, reverse, or really, you know, feel in a different way about. And so this is something that is either covering a painful experience or modifying a mood or behavior, right? Gotcha. And if you can get in touch with that, face that, then you can get beyond those abusive areas too. So the final thing I'll say about the childhood obesity thing is it really hurts my heart because, you know, children learn to eat from their parents, right? They do. Yeah. You know, they don't work every day. They don't cook all of that. And, you know, they learn from their parents. When I lived in New York, I used to go to this place to get some services done. And one time there was this little girl and she was getting some services done and her parents were with her. And so they were trying to keep her quiet. So her mother brought a big bag of snacks for her. So, you know, what's a good bag of snacks? You know, some apple slices and, you know, she brought her candy, right?
Mm-hmm.
She did. She brought her a bunch of candy, potato chips, a pop, and this little tiny girl. And
right.
she wasn't obese at that time, but her mother was. She was teaching this little, 4 or 5 year old girl,
right.
this is what you eat when you want a snack.
Right.
And I said, well, here, I have applesauce. Why don't you give, I had a sealed thing. Why don't you give her that? Oh, she's not going to like that. She doesn't like fruit. I said, has she tried it? No. I'm like, how do you know your
Right.
kid doesn't like fruit? Like, how
Right,
do you know? I didn't
right.
say it like that. I said, well,
Right.
why don't you just let her try it and see? Oh, wow, she really likes it. I said, I bet you don't like fruit. No, I don't. Like, why are you trying to make it so that your kid, doesn't like what you don't like? We really want our next generation to be better than us, right? I mean, that's really what we grew up on. Our grandparents did, our parents, they want each generation to get better. So let's not pass on those bad habits. Let's not teach our kids to eat poorly or to not care for themselves or to get in these bad relationships. Why not teach your children from whatever errors or misjudgments that you made? Give them the benefit of your experience. Help them to make better choices. Help them to move forward. That's how you progress a generation. That's how you progress a group of people. That's how you progress a family. That's how you do it. And that's how you can address this childhood obesity, is by working with them and saying, look at me. I don't have the best eating habits, but we can explore some habits that work for you.
Right.
And by the way, let's get you into some sport or activity so that you can move, right? Because kids don't play anymore. That I don't understand. And we have all those funny commercials showing kids like sitting in rolling rocking chairs and making their grandmothers get up and get them a grape soda and stuff like that. Those are crazy commercials.
Those are funny commercials, but
that's hilarious. True. It is true.
Yeah. Wow.
They don't do anything. The little boy who's walking the dog by laying down and the dog is on the treadmill.
Right.
You walk. I'm just going to sit,
Right.
What is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The commercial world now has just found a way to appeal to our laziness, our misfortune, or whatever it is that you want to make an excuse for.
Lowest common denominator.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna feed you that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we've got to take a break from the mundane, from the obvious. The obvious says, you know what? This body, when it breaks down, then it's broke down. If you don't fix it, it's going to break all the way down. And when it breaks all the way down, Forest Lawn is filled with those people. And there's no get back from Forest Lawn. So, not that I know of.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we've got to reach them before they get there. And so people like yourself that says, okay, I'm not here just to cut you open. I'm worried about what got you to this position to where you might have to get cut open. So let's take it back a step and let's work on it before we have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's what I respect in what you do. Thank you. For those that want to reach out to you, let's take it home. How can they connect with you?
213-261-7100. You can give a call and let us know what you're interested in, and then we will set you up with the appropriate appointment and the appropriate location. That's how we do it.
Well, thank you. Oh, you what?
Well, he's too in tune to me. He could feel it. And
we've worked together before.
There's also a website, Curetology.com, so you can check that out. It's up to you.
Yeah, that's how you reach it. Now, I'm still not Dr. Jason, but this is Dr. Jason Koberman's and Friends program, and we're glad that we were able to meet Dr. Cutter, and we look forward to seeing her again, same time, same place, same channel. So until then, be good to yourself and look out for the next guy. We'll see you next time on Health from the Inside Out. Thanks for showing up and showing out.
Absolutely.
See you next time, guys.
Thank you.
Heaven must have known that this day would surely come along. Has some angels watching me to make sure that I